There is a book that has never gone out of print. It was written over 2,000 years ago. It has been read by Chinese emperors and Japanese samurai and Napoleonic generals and American CEOs and Wall Street traders and professional athletes and mob bosses and Silicon Valley founders. It has been translated into every major language on Earth. It is one of the shortest books ever written on the subject of war. And it was written by a man that almost nobody can tell you anything about. His name is Sun Tzu, and the mystery of his life is almost as fascinating as the words he left behind. This is his story. China. Around 544 BC. The country is not yet a unified empire. It is a patchwork of warring kingdoms, each one fighting the others for land, for resources, for survival. The era is called the Spring and Autumn period, and it is one of the most turbulent chapters in Chinese history. Into this world, a child is born. His name at birth was Sun Wu. He came from a family with military roots. His grandfather had been a general who earned the right to take the surname Sun as a mark of honor. So, from the beginning, war was in his blood. Strategy was the family language. But here is where the historical record becomes thin. Sun Tzu, Sun Wu, left almost no personal records, no diary, no letters, no autobiography. What we know about his life comes from a single biography written by a historian named Sima Qian, centuries after Sun Tzu had died. And even Sima Qian admitted that the details were difficult to verify. What this means is that Sun Tzu exists, for us, almost entirely through his ideas. And his ideas changed the world. So let us follow both, the man and the mind. At some point in his life, Sun Wu left his home state and traveled to the kingdom of Wu, in the east of China, a powerful, ambitious state that sat along the Yangtze River Delta. He arrived carrying something unusual for a young man seeking military employment. A manuscript, 13 chapters, a complete theory of war, strategy, and leadership, written with a precision and clarity that no one in China had ever seen before. He presented himself to King Helu of Wu. The king read the manuscript, and then the king decided to test this unknown young strategist. What happened next became one of the most famous stories in the entire history of military leadership. King Helu looked at Sun Wu and said, "Prove it." He gestured to his palace harem. 180 of the king's concubines. "Train them," the king said. "Make soldiers out of them." This was a test designed to humiliate, to make Sun Wu look foolish, to expose him as a theorist with no practical ability. Sun Wu accepted. He divided the women into 2 companies. He appointed the king's 2 favorite concubines as company commanders. He explained the commands clearly. When the drum beats this way, turn left. When it beats this way, turn right. When it beats this way, advance. He gave the commands. The women laughed. They giggled. They thought it was a game. They did not move properly. They looked at each other and smiled. Sun Wu stopped. He said, "When instructions are unclear, that is the fault of the commander." He repeated the instructions, clearly, slowly. Again, he gave the commands. The women laughed again. Sun Wu stopped. He said, "When instructions are clear and soldiers still do not obey, that is the fault of the officers." He ordered the 2 company commanders, the king's 2 favorite concubines, to be executed. The king called out from his observation platform. He said, "I believe in your ability. Please spare them." Sun Wu looked up at the king and said, "Your servant has already received your appointment as commander. When a general is in command of an army, he need not accept all of the ruler's orders." He had the 2 women executed. He appointed new commanders. He gave the commands. The women moved in perfect, flawless formation. Left, right, advance, halt. Not a single mistake. Sun Tzu turned to the king and said, "Your army is now ready." The king, shaken, made him a general. That story, whether it happened exactly as told or was embellished by later writers, captures something essential about Sun Tzu's philosophy. Discipline is not cruelty. It is clarity. A leader who allows confusion to persist is not kind. He is negligent. And when command has been given, it must be followed. Or command means nothing. Sun Tzu served the kingdom of Wu through a period of dramatic military expansion. The kingdom's greatest rival was the powerful state of Chu to the west, a massive, wealthy empire that had dominated the region for generations. Under the generalship of a commander named Wu Zixu, and with Sun Tzu's strategic counsel, the kingdom of Wu launched a campaign against Chu that became a masterclass in the art of war, as Sun Tzu had written it. They did not attack where Chu was strongest. They attacked where Chu was weakest, striking at the flanks, cutting supply lines, forcing the enemy to fight on unfavorable ground. They moved fast, they deceived, they exhausted. In 506 BC, the Wu army captured Ying, the capital of Chu, one of the greatest cities in China. It was a stunning victory. Sun Tzu had applied his own philosophy to a real war, and it had worked. But the philosophy itself, the manuscript, the 13 chapters, that is where Sun Tzu's real legacy lives. Let us spend a moment there. Inside the mind of the man. Because the art of war is not what most people think it is. Most people imagine it as a book about how to fight. It is actually a book about how to avoid fighting. Sun Tzu opens with a line that stops most readers cold the first time they encounter it. He writes, "Supreme excellence consists not in winning every battle, but in defeating the enemy without any battle at all." Read that again. The greatest general is not the one who wins the most fights. The greatest general is the one who makes fighting unnecessary. This is the central idea of the entire book. War, Sun Tzu argues, is expensive. It is destructive. It kills your own men along with the enemy's. It drains resources. It exhausts populations. A war that could have been avoided through superior intelligence, superior positioning, or superior deception is a victory that cost you nothing. The goal is always to win. The method is always to spend as little as possible to do it. He writes about deception. All warfare is based on deception. When capable, feign incapability. When active, feign inactivity. When near, make the enemy believe you are far. When far, make them believe you are near. He writes about knowing. Know the enemy and know yourself, and in 100 battles you will never be in danger. Know yourself, but not the enemy, and for every victory you will suffer a defeat. Know neither the enemy nor yourself, and you will succumb in every battle. He writes about speed. In war, the way is to avoid what is strong and to strike at what is weak. Move with the speed of the wind. March like the forest. Attack like fire. Be still as the mountain. He writes about the general. A general must be wise, sincere, benevolent, courageous, and strict. Remove any one of these qualities and the army begins to fail. He writes about leadership in a way that no military thinker before him had ever articulated. That the relationship between a commander and his soldiers is one of the most important variables in any conflict. That soldiers who are treated well, who trust their leader, who understand the purpose of what they are doing, will fight harder and longer than soldiers who are simply commanded. This was radical thinking in 500 BC. It is still radical thinking today. And this is what makes Sun Tzu so strange and so enduring. He was writing about war, and he was actually writing about something much larger. He was writing about competition, about how to navigate a world where resources are limited, where other people want what you want, where intelligence and positioning and timing matter more than raw strength. Every principle in the art of war translates directly out of the battlefield. The executive reading it in a boardroom is not misusing the text. The athlete reading it before a championship is not distorting it. The entrepreneur reading it before launching a product into a crowded market is not stretching the metaphor. Sun Tzu knew exactly what he was doing. He was writing principles that were true at every level of human competition. Because war, at its core, is just competition at its most extreme. And the principles that govern the extreme case govern all the cases beneath it. Now, what happened to Sun Tzu? This is where the mystery deepens. After the capture of Chu's capital, Sun Tzu largely disappears from the historical record. Some scholars believe he retired, that after a life of military service, he withdrew, perhaps to write, perhaps to teach, perhaps simply to live quietly in a world that had finally stopped demanding his genius. Some scholars debate whether the historical Sun Wu and the author of The Art of War were even the same person, whether the text was compiled by later writers using his name, whether Sun Tzu was a single man or a tradition. We do not know when he died. We do not know where he is buried. We do not know what his face looked like. What we know is what he thought, and what he thought has never stopped being useful. The art of war has been in continuous circulation for over 2,500 years. It was studied by Cao Cao, the same Cao Cao who hunted Liu Bei across China, who wrote one of the earliest surviving commentaries on the text. It was brought to Japan in the 8th century and became foundational to samurai culture. Napoleon studied Chinese military philosophy that drew heavily from Sun Tzu's principles. Mao Zedong cited the art of war as a direct influence on his military strategy. The United States Marine Corps includes it in their required reading list. Jeff Bezos has quoted it. Bill Belichick has referenced it. Hedge fund managers and mixed martial artists and chess grandmasters have all found something in its pages that applied to their world. A book of 13 chapters, written by a man whose face we have never seen, whose birth date we are not certain of, whose death we cannot locate, still being read, still being applied, still being argued over and annotated and translated and argued over again. That is the legacy of Sun Tzu, not a kingdom, not an empire, not a dynasty, a way of thinking. And a way of thinking, it turns out, outlasts everything else. 5 lessons from the life and philosophy of Sun Tzu. Lesson 1. The goal is to win, not to fight. Sun Tzu's entire philosophy begins here. Fighting is expensive. Conflict is wasteful. The truly skilled competitor finds ways to win without ever reaching the moment of direct confrontation. Before you fight, ask yourself, is there a way to win this without fighting at all? Most of the time, the answer requires more intelligence, more patience, and more creativity than simply charging in. But it costs far less. Lesson 2. Know yourself before you study your enemy. Sun Tzu's most quoted line is about knowing the enemy and knowing yourself. But most people skip the second half. Self-knowledge comes first. Your real strengths, your actual weaknesses, the gaps between how you see yourself and how others see you. A person who knows their own limitations clearly will never be surprised by them in battle. A person who doesn't will be undone by them at the worst possible moment. Lesson 3. Clarity of command is an act of respect. Sun Tzu did not execute those concubines out of cruelty. He executed them because unclear leadership kills the people who follow it. When a leader gives vague instructions, when expectations are blurry, when accountability is absent, the people underneath that leader are set up to fail. Being clear, being direct, holding the line, that is not harshness. That is respect for the people in your charge. Lesson 4. Position before action. Sun Tzu writes that the victorious warrior first makes conditions for victory and then seeks battle. The defeated warrior first seeks battle and then tries to find conditions for victory. In other words, the outcome of most contests is decided before they begin. By preparation, by positioning, by the moves you made before anyone else was watching. The person who shows up having already done the work almost always beats the person who shows up hoping it works out. Lesson 5. Great ideas, expressed simply, last forever. The Art of War is not a long book. It is not a complicated book. It is a precise book. Sun Tzu stripped every idea down to its essential core and said it in as few words as possible. That precision is why it survived. Most ideas die not because they are wrong, but because they are buried under complexity. The clearest version of a true idea is the one that travels furthest. Sun Tzu may have been a single man. He may have been a tradition. He may have been both. A real general whose ideas were collected, refined, and passed forward by students and scholars who understood what he had found. Either way, what he left behind is extraordinary. A book written in a time of bronze swords and chariots, still read by people navigating artificial intelligence and global markets and professional sport and the daily competition of human ambition. The body of Sun Tzu is gone. The mind of Sun Tzu never left. This has been Legends of the Ancient World, an Alivinci University History Channel production.